Welcome to Econ 317. In this instruction video, we will solve for the market equilibrium in a situation where there are two goods available in the market. So, we will say good one, we will use notation for good one, quantity as Q1 and price as P1. For good 2, quantity as Q2, price as P2. And now I will write down the market demand for each one of these two goods. So demand for good 1 is given as Q. I will use the superscript D for demand. So demand for Q1 is given as 22 minus 3P1 plus P2. For good 2, again I will use the superscript D for demand. 2 subscript for good 2 is given as 12 plus P1 minus 2P2. So let's notice some features of the demand. We should expect that the demand is downward sloping in its own price. So that indeed is the case. As you can see, the coefficient of price P1 in the demand for good 1 is negative 3, is a negative number, so it has a negative slope. Similarly, coefficient for P2 in the demand for good 2 is again negative 2. So demands are downward sloping. We can verify by taking an example. So let me take P1 to be 1, P2 to be 1, and let's find out the demand. QD1 is 22 minus 3 times 1 is minus 3 plus P2 is 1, so 1. So 22 plus 1 minus 3 is 20. I do the same thing for demand good of good 2. 12 plus P1 which is 1 minus 2 times P2 which is minus 2. So 12 plus 1, 13 minus 2 is 11. Now what I will do is I will increase the price of good 1 to verify that the demand for good 1 indeed goes down. So let's take P1 to be 2 and P2 remains as it is 1, and then let me compute the demand for good 1 is 22 minus 3 times P1, so 3 times 2 is 6, and there is no change in P2, so plus 1. 22 minus 6 is 16 plus 1, 17. So you can see the quantity demanded goes down from 20 to 17 when the price of good 1 has gone up from 1 to 2. Let me do one more example just to demonstrate it is the same feature for good 2 demand as well. So I will keep price of good 1 constant at 1 and increase the price of good 2 from 1 to 2. So now let me compute QD2 is 12 plus there is no change in P1, 1 minus 2 times 2, that is 4. So 12 plus 1, 13 minus 4 is 9. We can notice the quantity demanded for good 2 went down from 11 to 9 as price of good 2 went up from $1 per unit to $2 per unit. This is one feature. I will also like to look at another aspect of the demand for two goods. I want to claim that good 1 and good 2 are substitute. And so the way we look at goods being substitute if price of one good goes up, we will tend to buy more of the other good. So we already know, I will show through a computation how these two goods turn out to be substitutes. So we already know when P1 is 1, price of good 2 is 1, then quantity demanded of good 1 is 20. Let me also retain the price of good 1 at the same level, 1. Increase the price of good 2 from 1 to 2 and compute the quantity demanded of good 1, which will be 22 minus 3P1, so minus 3, plus P2, so 2. So 22 plus 2 is 24, minus 3 is 21. So as price of good 2 has gone up, people are buying more of good 1. In that sense, these two goods are substitutes to each other. I leave it to you to do the verification for good 2 as well. But we can now go back and look at the demand equation itself to figure out whether these two goods are substitutes or complements. So I will write down the demand once more. 22 minus 3P1 plus P2. So you see the coefficient of P2 is plus 1. If there is no number written here, it is 1. So, and we have a positive sign, so coefficient of P2 is plus 1, and that is what makes these two goods substitutes. If this coefficient were a negative number, then we would have a complement. Okay, now we will also go over this supply, and we want to make this supply function as a simple one, a routine one, where these suppliers look at only the price of their own good and determine the quantity they want to supply. So supply QS for supply QS1 is given as minus 2 plus 4P1. So suppliers do not look at price of good 2 while finding out what quantity they should sell of good 1, which should be an intuitive one in case we have suppliers who are producing only one good. And now I will also specify the supply function for good 2, which is minus 4 plus 3P2. So suppliers of each good determine the quantity they want to supply for based on the price of that good itself. For equilibrium, we follow the same principle. So the equilibrium in market for good 1 follows the same rule as before. The quantity demanded of good 1 is equal to quantity supplied of good 1. Okay, so now I can write down, I have the expression for both. The quantity demanded of good 1 is 22 minus 3P1 plus P2, and quantity supplied of good 1 is minus 2 plus 4P1. Now I have to do some manipulation of the terms such that we end up having constants on the one side and variables on the other. So let's first move the numbers to the left hand side because I have only one term here. So plus 2 here, and move the variables from the left hand side to the right hand side. So I have minus 3P1. I will add plus 3P1 to both sides. Then the 3P1 term on the left will disappear. and then minus P2 minus P2 because P2 was appearing with a positive coefficient. With this transformation, we end up getting 22 plus 2, 24, a constant by itself on the left hand side, minus 2 plus 2 are cancelled out. 4p1 plus 3p1 gives me 7p1 minus p2. Usually we write equations with the variables on the left hand side and constants on the right hand side. So I will write it 7p1 minus p2 equal to 24, and this is my equation number 1. This is the equation we obtained by guaranteeing equilibrium outcome for good 1. Then market equilibrium for good 2. We follow the same principle. Quantity demanded of good 2 is equal to quantity supplied of good 2. We have the expressions for both. So 12 plus P1 minus 2P2 is equal to negative 4 plus 3P2. This is the quantity demanded for good 2 on the left, quantity supplied for good 2 on the right. And we will follow the same procedure for transforming this equation so that we have constants on the one hand side and the variables on the other. So plus 4, then I have plus 2p2 plus 2p2 minus p1 minus p1. Okay, with this now we are able to obtain P1 and P1 cancel out, P2 and P2 cancel out, 16 on the left hand side, a constant, and minus 4 plus 4 cancel out, 3P2 plus 2P2 is 5P2 minus P1. And again we will flip this side, and also I will write P1 first, P2 second to be consistent with the order for the first equation. So I'll write it as minus P1 plus 5P2 equal to 16, and this will be my equation 2. This equation is obtained by requiring equilibrium condition in market for good 2. Now we need to solve these two equations simultaneously to be able to find out the prices and the quantity. So I rewrite the equations once more. I have 24, no, not this way. I want to write it 7p1 minus P2 equal to 24. This was my equation number 1, minus P1 plus 5P2 equal to 16. This was my equation 2. And the way I am going to solve is I will multiply the equation 1 by 5 so that we are able to cancel P2 in the new setup. So let me do this. 5 times 7 is 35 P1 minus 5 P2 is equal to 24 times 5 is 120. That's our first equation. Second equation is as it is, minus P1 plus 5P2 equal to 16, and now we can add these two equations to be able to solve for P1. When I add these two equations, minus 5P2 plus 5P2 cancel each other out, so the left hand side is only 34 P1, 35 minus 1 is 34 P1. On the right hand side I have 136. I need to divide both sides by 34 to be able to obtain the value of P1. 136 over 34, I can do some factoring out, so both have a common factor of 2. I divide both sides by 2. What I obtain on the numerator is 136 divided by 2 is 68. 34 divided by 2 is 17, and 68 over 17 is 4. So now I know price of good 1 is $4 per unit. I can plug it in any one of these two equations to obtain the value of P2. So let me use the second equation. So minus P1, 4, plus 5P2 equal to 16, which means I will add 4 to both sides to get rid of the numbers, the constant on the left hand side. And so what I obtain is 5P2 minus 4 and plus 4 cancel each other out. I need to minus 4 plus 4 cancel each other out, so I have 5P2 by itself, and then on the right hand side I have 20, so I divide both sides by 5. I obtain the value of P2 to be 20 over 5 is 4. So now we have obtained P1 to be 4, P2 to be 4, but we are not done yet. We have to find out the quantities of the two goods in the equilibrium. And for this you can check. It is easier to use this supply to figure out the quantities. So Q1 is minus 4, no, Q2 is minus 4 plus 3P2, which is equal to minus 4 plus 3 times 4. So minus 4 plus 12 turns out to be Q2 being equal to 8. I go to the first good, and then we can use the expression for good 1 for the supply, which is given as Q1 equal to minus 2 plus 4 P1 equal to minus 2 plus 4 times 4 is minus 2 plus 16 turns out to be 14. So now what I have obtained is the full equilibrium outcome. Good 1 price is, no, I will write P1 star because now it is an equilibrium outcome, $4 per unit. I put a star because these are equilibrium. Q1 star is 14 units. P2 star is $4 per unit. And Q2 star is 8 units. And now we can verify each one of the prices are strictly positive, which indeed should be the case, and the quantities for each one of these two goods are also strictly positive, which indeed should be the case. So this is the market equilibrium. Outcome for the two goods. And this is a good point to stop.